Today, we are diving deep into a place where the past isn't just history, something you read about in a book. It feels like an active presence. We're talking about Great Britain, a land where ancient stones and some truly awful tragedies have cooked up some of the world's most stubborn ghost stories.
You see, to really get a handle on the ghosts, you gotta understand the world they supposedly came from. These aren't just old buildings. They're relics from a time way before we had the science to explain things, way before electricity. A time when the night was pitch black and, frankly, fear was just a part of daily life.
And yeah, this was not some gentle storybook history. It was a time of incredible hardship, of brutal, swift justice, and diseases that could wipe out a town. That kind of history, well, it soaks into the very stones of a place.
Think of it like this. Every single wall, every single cobblestone has been a silent witness to centuries of human drama, of joy, sure, but also profound, gut-wrenching suffering. All that collective experience, it has to go somewhere, right?
And that's really the heart of our story today. It's this idea that really intense historical moments can leave behind some kind of echo, an imprint that people are still bumping into centuries later. The question is it a real echo of the past? Or is it something our own minds are creating? That's what we're here to figure out.
So that's the big question we're going to keep coming back to. We're going to look at all the chilling legends for sure, but we're also going to look at what modern science has to say about why these places just feel so, well, haunted.
And we're kicking things off at one of the most famous and most feared places on the entire planet, the Tower of London. A place that means power, prison, and royal tragedy all rolled into one.
Now, the most famous ghost here is probably Anne Boleyn, beheaded back in 1536. But just try to put yourself in the shoes of a guard on a cold, quiet night. Suddenly, the air just freezes around you. You see a figure in old-timey Tudor clothes just glide past and then, poof, vanish. This isn't a movie script. It's a summary of hundreds of years of reports, including one from a terrified 19th century guard who supposedly fainted after his bayonet went straight through a ghost that was walking towards him.
So you've got two completely different stories here. On one side, you have the bone-chilling legend of a restless spirit. On the other, you have science suggesting that our own minds are the real haunted house. Psychologists will point to the tower's whole vibe, the dim light, the way every little sound echoes off the stone, and hey, let's be honest, the simple fact that you expect to be scared when you go there. It's the perfect recipe for fear, and those sudden cold spots could just be drafts or air being cooled by those huge ancient stones.
But here's where it gets tricky. After you've tried to explain away the shadows and the drafts, you're left with this. The modern, totally rational people who guard this place night after night will quietly tell you, it just doesn't feel empty. It's a feeling that you can't really measure with a thermometer. Okay, so if the Tower of London is haunted by a silent ghost, our next location is haunted by a sound, a desperate, terrifying scream that's been heard in its halls for hundreds of years. Let's go to Hampton Court Palace. This is the tragic story of Catherine Howard, Henry VIII's fifth wife. She was accused of adultery and arrested right here in the palace. The legend goes that she broke free from her guards and ran down this very gallery, screaming for the king to have mercy on her before she was dragged away to her execution. And to this day, people in what's now called the Haunted Gallery report hearing those same blood-curdling screams, feeling a sudden wave of panic, and even the creepy sensation of being chased.
Now, science has a really fascinating theory for this one. It's a thing called infrasound. Basically, these are sound waves that are so low frequency, you can't actually hear them with your ears, but your body feels them. And it turns out the specific design of long stone corridors, just like the one at Hampton Court, can naturally create infrasound. And studies have shown this stuff can cause real physical symptoms, anxiety, nausea, and that classic spooky feeling of a presence in the room.
So you see the two explanations right next to each other. Is it the tragic echo of a queen's last desperate moments? Or is the building itself playing tricks on our bodies, using invisible vibrations to make us feel a supernatural dread?
But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. Staff at the palace have reported hearing the screams late at night, when the building is totally empty and locked up tight. If infrasound is caused by things like wind or the movement of people, what's causing it and those screams in a completely silent, deserted palace?
All right, for our final spot, we're heading north to Scotland, to a massive fortress built on an extinct volcano, Edinburgh Castle. And here, the scariest stories don't come from the castle walls above, but from the darkness deep below.
Underneath the castle is this whole maze of vaults and tunnels that were used as dungeons and, grimly, as quarantine zones for plague victims. The legends down here are wild. A phantom drummer boy whose lonely beat is only heard right before the castle is attacked, the ghosts of French prisoners of war, and maybe the most chilling of all, the cries of children who were sent down to map the tunnels centuries ago and supposedly never came back.
The scientific take here is all about psychology. When you put a person in total darkness and near total silence, like you find in these vaults, the brain starts to do weird things. It's called sensory deprivation. The mind gets starved of information from the outside world, so it just starts, well, making stuff up. Auditory hallucinations, like hearing whispers or footsteps, and a really powerful sense of disorientation.
And yet, here's where the mystery just gets deeper. Tour guides, even the ones who are total skeptics, have noticed a really strange pattern. Visitors on completely different tours, people who have never met or spoken to each other, will report the exact same specific thing. They'll describe being touched on the same arm in the same dark corner, or hearing the same child's voice in the same empty room. How does sensory deprivation explain that kind of consistency?
Which brings us all the way back to that fundamental question. After looking at all of this from both sides, are we dealing with haunted minds, or are these places actually truly haunted?
Let's just pull this all together for a second. Science gives us some pretty powerful explanations, right? Environmental stuff like cold spots and infrasound, the power of our own expectations, and the weird effects of sensory deprivation. But there are these stubborn little details that just don't quite fit. The identical experiences shared by total strangers, the consistent sightings by sober, on-duty skeptics, and people feeling intense emotions in a place before they even know its tragic history. These are the moments where the scientific explanations just feel incomplete.
So, maybe the answer isn't a simple choice between ghosts and psychology. Maybe the two are connected. Maybe these places just saturated with so much intense human history, they act like a stage. And our minds, primed by the spooky environment and our own deep-seated fears, become the perfect audience for a play that started hundreds of years ago. Does Britain just remember its past, or does it sometimes whisper it?